a quick review on the proper protocols for water quality monitoring for Sierra Streams Institute. We greatly appreciate all the time, energy, and effort you all give to us. Thanks. First things first, grab your backpack and open her up. Inside you'll find our handy dandy clipboard, which has step-by-step instructions, so if you're forgetting anything, you can just reference this and follow it down. First thing on our list is to turn on the dissolved oxygen meter and conductivity meters. So let's grab those out. Both those meters are in separate yellow bags labeled with their number, which we're going to record on the data sheet. The dissolved oxygen meter has a sheath on the probe, which we're going to leave on for right now. All we're doing is turning this on, waiting for the screen to light up, and then we'll put it aside. This needs to sit for at least 5 minutes, preferably closer to 10, before we calibrate it and actually put in the stream. So do the DO last. And then we're also going to turn on our conductivity meter, which looks quite similar, but does not have the sheath. And what you're going to do with this one is turn it on, and then just place it anywhere in the stream where the probe is entirely underwater, and let that sit for a little bit. So, to fill out your data sheet, what you want to do is first make sure that the site is the correct one that you're at. This is incorrect. We're not currently at site 14. We are on Little Deer Creek in Pioneer Park, but never mind that. Today's date is November 23rd, 2020. Make sure you always put the year in there. The start time right now is 1:30 p.m., which will never be when you're monitoring. We're always monitoring before noon. And then I'm always going to put the first and last name of the monitors on here. So please make sure you're including your last name. So right now I have Alex, our new AmeriCorps, helping me film this. So we're out here monitoring. And then next on the list is marking the weather. You can mark multiple of these depending on what the weather conditions were that day or the day before. So currently we have blue skies, it's clear, and yesterday, same deal. If it happened to have been windy or raining yesterday, I would just put an X in those boxes. Next, we're gonna go ahead and estimate, so make sure you're circling if you actually measured or if you're estimated. 99% of the time you'll be estimating these. And I'm gonna estimate the width right here. It's probably about 2 meters. And making sure that we're doing the metric system, we have unit conversions here for you if you need them. And then again, we're going to estimate the depth at the middle of the major flow. Middle of the major flow right here is probably not more than like 10 centimeters. We'll throw that on there. Great. Next on the list is you're going to put the number of each meter in here. So every single meter has a number on it, and you're going to write that number right here. So all of the meters I have today are meter number 2. And then normally when you're taking your water samples with the nutrient and algae bottles, you're going to just put a check after you've done it, or if for some reason you're not, you're just going to put an NA because you're not collecting that. Same with the bacterial world pack, NA. If you see anything weird or something cool to note, or you lost a bottle or damaged something, or a meter was acting weird, you're just going to write that in here. And then the rest of this data sheet is for me back at the lab, so you're going to leave this entirely blank, as well as this bottom portion. And that's the data sheet. So making sure you fill out all of this before you actually start filling out the data itself. So normally, this is when you would take your 3 Nalgene bottles that we collect our nutrient samples in, and triple rinse them, and then fill them and put them in our cooler to take back to the lab. This is also when we do our whirl pack, which I'll do a video on that later to demonstrate proper whirl pack usage. Then I like to open up the turbidity meter, take out the 3 sample bottles. You're gonna take the lids off, put them somewhere safe so we don't lose them since they're pretty small, and triple rinse them. The other thing to note is when you're monitoring, you want to do it in the same 1 meter by 1 meter square. So pick your spot where you're in the flow. You don't want to do it in an eddy where there's no water movement. You want to always make sure there's some water movement happening. So if you need to move up or downstream a little bit, that's okay. And then you're going to take the bottles and rinse them out. 1, 2, 3 times. And then we're going to fill it. And always make sure you're dumping these bottles out either on land or downstream. You don't want to disturb the upstream area to make sure that doesn't get into the sample bottle. Then you'll take the lids, put those back on, and generally actually you're going to want to give those each a quick rinse too. Make sure there's no cross-contamination between sites. You'll always have these step-by-step directions up at the top of the case. So if you're ever forgetting how to do it, just follow those directions down the line. Step 1 is to turn it on. So you'll hold this power button in the bottom right corner. Once the screen's on, you'll see that measure is highlighted. You'll go ahead and hit enter on that. And if the screen is ever dark, press this sun to relight the screen up. So we're going to scroll down to turbidity with blank, because we have our handy dandy blank here in the red cap. We're going to take the blank out, going to grab a Kim wipe from inside the case, and carefully wipe it clean of water, fingerprints, anything. So I like to hold the lid and then wipe down the edges and make sure you're getting the bottom too, and then take a look, make sure there's nothing on there. So then you're going to take the bottle, lift the lid of the meter, and you're going to put the bottle in and line this line up with the little arrow that's right there. Then you'll close the lid, hit enter to scan the blank. It'll tell you when the blank is done, and then you can take that blank out, and then you'll take your first sample. These samples are going to be a little wet, and we always have plenty of Kim wipes in here, but if you want, you're welcome to dry it on your pant, your shirt, whatever first, to save some Kim wipes. So then your same deal, gonna wipe this nice and clean. Make sure there's no water or anything remaining on this. If it's raining the day you're monitoring, just fill these and take them back to the car and use the turbidity meter in the car. So same as the blank, this vertical line, line it up with that arrow, close the lid, and then hit scan sample. It's going to give you a reading, 0.18. So then, on the data sheet, you're going to do 0.18. But then, you're going to do that 2 more times. So you'll just hit enter again to scan the sample, 0.19. And 1 more time for good measure, 0.21. So then, of those 3 numbers, you're going to circle the median, which this one just happens to be in the middle. It's 0.19. So then we're going to take sample 1 out, and you can dump it, and then we'll do the same thing, repeat those steps with sample 2, and you'll just record those into the sample 2 column, and then same thing with sample 3. So for the turbidity meter, you are going to do 3 samples for each sample, if that makes sense. These are our new pH meters. They're fairly similar to the old ones, but a little fancier. So all you're going to do is take the little cap off, which will have water in it, and we always want to keep water in it. If it gets empty, just fill it up with a little bit of creek water before you put it in the backpack at the end of monitoring. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn it on. And unlike the old ones, these do not need to sit in a buffer cup at all. They can just go straight in the stream. We'll turn it on. Once it's on, we have the reading, this little timer up here that clicks until it gives you a check mark. And so the old ones we used to just wait until it kind of balanced out. This one we wait until the top little timer turns into a check. So I want to make sure I'm doing this in my 1 meter area, holding it in so the tip is entirely underwater. But try to keep the screen out of the water. They are waterproof, but we want to keep them safe. And then you're holding in this for up to a minute, sometimes more, before it'll give you your first check mark. And then, once it's given my first check mark, I'll read the number and I'll write it on the data sheet. And then I'll take it out, give it a shake, wait until the check mark disappears, and do it again. And then we're going to do that 3 times until we have our 3 readings that we're going to put on the data sheet. And once you're done with that, you're going to turn it off. You got to hold the button for a minute for it to do that. And then you're going to go to your backpack, grab your deionized water spray bottle, give it a little spray to clean off the probe, And then you'll put the cap back on. And you can put that away and you're done with pH. Alright, and then next we'll do our conductivity meter, which should have been resting in the water this whole time. You'll take that out, find a spot within your 1 meter depth that is deep enough for the probe to stand vertically in. If the creek is really shallow where you are and there's not a deep enough spot, you can have it at a slight angle like that. You're going to hold it in the water until the number on the screen stabilizes, and you're going to record both the microsiemens and the temperature on the data sheet. And then in between each, you're going to take it out, give it a little shake, and put it in a slightly different spot in the monitoring location. Again, ideally, this meter is vertical in the water column if it's deep enough, and at the minimum, you need to make sure this part here with the holes is underwater because this is what reads the conductivity measurement, and then this little metal part is what reads the temperature. This metal part here is a weight to help it stay vertical in the water column. Make sure this is tight because it can easily unscrew and fall off, so I always like to give it a little check before I use it. So again, 3 measurements in the same 1 meter that you took your earlier samples, and then when you're done, you're going to take that DI water bottle, spray out the conductivity chamber and the temperature probe, and then hold the power button to turn it off, and then you can put it away in its bag. When you're putting these meters away in their bags, make sure that they are going in vertical. These take a minute to turn off. Make sure they're going in vertical and that they're going into the correctly labeled bag. So now you're going to grab your dissolved oxygen meter, which should have been sitting on land with the sheath on it this whole time. This number in the bottom left corner is what you are going to record before calibrating it, which is right here on the data sheet. In order to do that, all you're going to do is hold the cal button until it says it's calibrating, and then it'll say calibration successful. After that, you can take the sheath off and start monitoring. You want to try to keep it vertical in the water column, but if you cannot get all parts of the probe underwater, as you can see it needs to be at least this deep for the temperature to be read, then you can angle it slightly. This one's going to bounce around a little bit more. Hopefully eventually it'll stabilize, but if it does not, record the number that it is stabilizing around the most. And recognizing that moving water and other factors may keep it from completely stopping on a number, so just do your best. But I like to give this at least a minute to calibrate itself into the water and get used to it before I'll record any of the measurements. So same deal, you're going to do 3 readings, take it out, give it a shake, and put it in a slightly different area for each reading. And these should be in the water for at least 30 seconds to a minute between each reading. Great, and once you're done with that, same deal as all the other meters. We're going to grab the distilled water, spray it off, especially this yellow bit, which is what is actually reading the dissolved oxygen and the temperature. And then we'll put our sheath back on, which we want to make sure it's wet inside. If you notice that it's dry and that yellow sponge in there is dry, just give it a little bit of a spray with the DI water. And then once that's back on, you can turn this off and put it away and back in the backpack. Lastly, don't forget about the air thermometer. If when you go back to check on it, it's in the sun, move it into the shade and give it another minute or 2 to recalibrate itself. All you're going to do, read that number, make sure it's not changing. Right now I have 10.3 degrees Celsius, and then you're going to write it right here on your data sheet. And then make sure you put it back in its sheath and back in the clipboard so we don't lose it. This is what your completed data sheet should look like. Make sure that your partner reviews it before you come back to the lab with it. Make sure that date's filled out, time is filled out, both monitors' names, estimated stream width, estimated depth of flow, your weather conditions, the number for each meter, the calibration for the dissolved oxygen, and then the readings for each sampling. And you're also going to make sure you circle those median numbers for the turbidity readings. And if you make a mistake, scribble it out or erase it and write it next to it. Make sure all these numbers are legible for me. When you're done monitoring, make sure everything goes back in the pack, including the clipboard, all of the meters, the air thermometer, the DI water, and everything. Do a quick check around the site, make sure you didn't leave anything behind. When you're putting the meters in the pack, make sure everything is going in vertically, especially this pH meter, so that the water doesn't leak out of the cap. You can just safely tuck it in between the dissolved oxygen and conductivity meters. Great.